Pretty Girl Club. In this video, I'm going to be doing a psychoanalysis on why some Black women find it hard to social climb. If you go on to colorism channels or if you go on to TikTok right now, you will see them talking about how they feel excluded whenever they are in classy events. You'll see them talking about how they feel like people go out of their way to leave them out. And a lot of women in the Black empowerment space, they're actually teaching multiculturalism, which builds the pedestal of exoticals. They know that multiculturalism is the key to being able to relate to people from other backgrounds. By the way, shout out to the Black Exotical. She has some phenomenal social climbing content on her channel, so be sure to subscribe to her. She's one of the first content creators that comes to mind when I discuss this topic. But one of the talking points I heard is that white men lose privilege when they marry Black women. Not only is that false, but that's actually an anti-Black talking point. Do you hear the internalized anti-Blackness? Because they're actually associating Blackness with struggle and being underprivileged. And I say all the time on this channel, your Blackness is not a handicap. Being dark-skinned is not a handicap. But a lot of women with inferiority complexes, they think it is. And so that's why you'll see that they're constantly comparing themselves to women like Meghan Markle. They're constantly trying to get a peek into what her life is like. This is why they're always asking you guys, exoticals, about your dating life. They're asking you about your social life. They're studying you because not only are you their standard of beauty, but you're also their standard of living. And another thing I've noticed too is that women who have inferiority complexes, they struggle a lot with jealousy. And if you look at a lot of Black empowerment content creators, one of their main gripes is the fact that they feel like they don't have as much social status as non-Black women. They feel like every other group of women, mixed women, white women, Latinas, Indian, whatever, they feel like all those other groups of women have a social status that they don't have, and it all ties back to their own anger against Black men. So you guys have heard them talk about how they have toxic Black mothers, their fathers are dusties. This is according to their talking points. They talk about how Black men don't want them. And so from the outside looking in, a lot of monocultural Black women, they're looking at white women, for example, and they think that these mystical white women just have these perfect lives and that a lot of these white men, they're just such protectors and providers. And so this is why you see them all over YouTube and TikTok desperately trying to get the attention of non-Black men. They're telling other Black women to mark themselves as white on dating apps so they can be seen by white men. They're trying to smexually coerce men to be with them, and they're using talking points like, if you don't date me, you're colorist. If you don't like me, you're colorist. If you don't sleep with me, you're colorist. That's actually a form of smexual pressure and coercion. And so they feel like they can't get attention online unless they are griping or complaining about something. And if you don't believe me, just go look at the Black empowerment channels. Go look at the Black femininity channels and you'll hear their talking points about this. They really do feel like they are at the bottom or like everybody's against them, or they will give this talking point where it's like, you have to compete. So they view us as their competition. They view non-Black women as their competition. So that's why a lot of us have experienced kind of that crabs in a bucket mentality whenever we are around the women who have inferiority complexes. That's why they will tell us stuff like, oh, well, you're not even that pretty. Well, you're not even that ambiguous. They will say that you're not that ambiguous because they know that ambiguity comes with privilege. Because you have racial proximity to people of other backgrounds, or you look like you have proximity to them. So even if you're monoracially Black, but you happen to have a phenotype that is found in the Filipino community or the Indian community or something, sometimes people will mistake you as one of them, and it makes them feel more safe with you. And this is a part of where they get that term safe brown. They will say, oh, well, you're safe brown. Okay, first of all, they're implying that being dark is dangerous. And secondly, they're actually acknowledging your ambiguity because they're saying that the brown hue in your skin, it is universal enough to the point where other people of color feel relatable to you. But one of the things they are teaching unambiguous women is how to navigate upper class spaces. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But the reason they feel the need to even teach that is because, according to their own talking points, a lot of them don't come from upper class spaces or they're not used to being safe. They're not used to being in classy spaces. They're not used to going to the nice coffee shops or going to the country club or going to the golf club, doing Pilates classes. And this is why you see a lot of unambiguous women who married these older white men. You'll see them creating TikTok content, basically flexing the fact that they're playing golf, because that's how inaccessible it was to them when they were growing up. Imagine being so far removed and so isolated from classy spaces to the point where you literally feel uncomfortable and you feel like you don't belong. One of the biggest traumas that a lot of Black women face is rejection. So feeling like they don't belong, feeling like they don't fit in. If you hear them talk about their childhood stories, they will talk about being rejected in dating scenarios or for their complexion, their hair texture, etc. And another layer of that internalized rejection actually has to do with their social class, kind of like their financial class or like the neighborhood they grew up around. Because have you ever been around a Black person that says, oh, you're acting white? Or I can't do that. That's for white people. That's white people shit. Oh, you eat salads? That's white people food. The type of person who's saying that is a person who's monocultural and has an inferiority complex. They view their Blackness as a cage. They feel like because of their Blackness, they're not allowed to eat certain foods. They're not allowed to be in certain spaces. And this is something that they inflict upon themselves. Nobody is out here telling them, you can't do Pilates, you can't play golf. No, this is an internalized spirit of rejection that a lot of them carry. A lot of them feel like, hey, if I don't look like the women in the Pilates class, or if I'm not knowledgeable and experienced about all of these different things, then it makes me less than. But did you know that's actually a form of monoculturalism? They're used to being in the hood culture. They're used to being in working class culture. They're not used to kind of these suburban environments. A lot of them are not used to being around women who don't have the traumas that they have, because I've talked about this before. Some of these women will literally get mad when they can't trauma bond with you. For a lot of Black women, their sisterhood is built on trauma bonds. So if you benefit from colorism, texturism, featureism, or even if you don't fit their stereotypes of Blackness, they will actually view you as their enemy, or they will call you white. They'll say you're acting white or you want to be white. And I find it interesting how they say the exoticals want to be white, but behind closed doors, they're over here strategizing about how to navigate in these quote unquote white spaces. So I think that some of them have a deep envy of non-Black cultures. There's a deep envy of coming from a classy background, like if you come from the suburbs. So kind of like in my case, part of the reason why so many people hate the Exoticals United channel or the other exotical channels is because a lot of us are very multicultural. A lot of us did not come from hood culture, or if we did, we ended up being in different cultures as adults. So it's almost like some of these women feel like they are socially being left behind. They have FOMO, fear of missing out. They don't want to miss out on the boat rides. They don't want to miss out on going on the yacht. They don't want to miss out on the soft life. A lot of Black women have not been able to access the soft life, and they've said it themselves. They've said that they lived kind of a hard knock life, or that their mothers raised them in kind of this bullying way. Some of them were raised by mothers who literally used bullying as their parenting tactic. But I think one of the biggest flaws with their mindset is this concept of everyone being their enemy. Everybody is not your enemy. Everybody is not racist. Everybody's not colorist and texturist. But because they've spent their whole lives being told by other unambiguous Black women that people are, it's like they're carrying that on their shoulder. It's almost like they are anticipating the isms in their daily life. They're literally walking around in fear of colorism. This is why some of them actually avoid Black spaces. It's because of the fear of colorism. Some of them will say things like, oh, I can't go to an HBCU. Oh, I can't join a Black organization. I can't date a man who's Black because he's going to be colorist. So the fear of colorism actually holds them back from navigating in Black spaces. You guys know me. I actually don't think all of the Black culture is bad. I don't think that there's a such thing as, this group of people is just all trash and then everybody else is great. No, Black culture has its advantages as well. But I think that Black women with inferiority complexes, they're unable to access Black privilege because they don't know what that is. And by the way, I'll never talk about that publicly on this channel. Those types of talking points will stay behind the paywall on my Patreon. So be sure to join that if you're interested. And another thing I'll hear unambiguous women say is like, oh, well, I'm viewed as the most exotic in white spaces because, I have this dark skin and this 4C hair. And it's like, okay, but a part of exoticism means that you literally stand out. So you will be getting stares. You will be getting stared at. I've literally been around some black women who are scared of being stared at. They think that every time someone looks at them that they must be racist or a colorist person. But because I don't have traumas with people staring at me, if somebody stares at me, I assume they're looking at me because I'm pretty. They think I'm beautiful. They think I look really good. They're admiring me. So do you see how that PTSD from the isms, it shapes their outlook, it shapes their viewpoint to the point where they literally feel uncomfortable being in these quote unquote classy spaces. And by the way, have you ever noticed that they'll talk about navigating classy social spaces, but they never describe exactly what those things are? So for example, if I were to ask them, okay, what are these classy spaces? They'll be like, oh, Pilates, golf, going to yoga class, going to a coffee shop. Okay, what makes it classy? Just admit that you think it's classy because white people do it. You think it's classy because non-black people are doing it. You think it's classy because there are no black people there. So that in and of itself is already a problem. That mindset contributes to an inferiority complex. And another thing they struggle with really bad is imposter syndrome, because if you have been raised to hate white people, if the only way you have experienced white people is by your family and friends telling you that, oh, they're all racist, or Indians are colorist, or Mexican people are colorist, they don't like black people, they talk about improving their race and dating someone whiter. So if you've been sent all of these internalized messages that every other race of people hates you, of course you're going to feel like an imposter in multicultural spaces, because deep down inside you think they're all racist. You think all of them are colorist. You think they all hate your blackness. Something else a lot of women with inferiority complexes struggle with is viewing men as their ticket to success. So this is more of a Decentering Men channel. I believe that decentering men exists on a spectrum. Okay, so decentering men doesn't have to mean lesbianism or celibacy for life. I'm just talking about getting out of codependency. But I think a lot of them struggle with codependency because they don't have any other strategies to level up on their own. A lot of them feel like, they're not pretty enough, or not smart enough, or not cultured enough, not educated enough. So a lot of them have this limerence over non-black men. They will fantasize about this magical Romeo. They'll fantasize about this magical Fabio who will just come and sweep them off their feet, and he's going to build their finances up. And I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm not saying that's impossible. But generally speaking, a man is not a plan. And also the problem I have with some of the male-centered talking points is that before you get in a relationship, you're single. So it's like, okay, you can fantasize all you want. You can have high standards all you want. That's fine. But what are you telling these black women to do when they're single? Because everybody is single before they get in a relationship. So I think that's another thing that holds them back socially. A lot of them put their lives on hold because they don't have a man. So it's like, oh, well, I can't move out of this city because I'm waiting to get married. Oh, I can't go to college yet, or I want to deprioritize my education because a lot of men, they don't care about my degree anyway. So they're actually basing their life decisions on what a man thinks. Oh, I'm going natural because white men like dark-skinned black women with 4C hair. Well, it's like, why can't you go natural because you like your 4C hair? So decentering men, it's not about hating them or whatever. It's about taking back your power and saying, hey, I'm going to go natural because I like my 4C hair. I don't care what other people think of it. Another mindset that holds a lot of black women back from leveling up is this pressure to be down to earth. This pressure to be down, this pressure to be relatable. Have you ever been called a sellout by unambiguous black people? Have you ever been told that you're acting white, or, you changed, you forgot where you came from, or, they'll kind of warn you, don't forget where you came from. Okay, that's another limiting belief that actually contributes to them feeling like imposters whenever they go into these classy spaces. Because in their subconscious mind, they still have that talking point of, hey, you can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the girl. That's another talking point I've heard by the black community. They also have this talking point of white people will never accept you. We know that that's one of their beliefs because they tell mixed women all the time. They tell us multiracial women, oh, your white side will never accept you. The Latinos will never accept you. The Indians will never accept you. Okay, so if they would never accept me as someone who's light skinned and has a multiracial background, curly hair, if they would never accept me, what do you think they're going to do to you as an unambiguous dark skinned black woman with 4C hair? So they don't realize that a lot of their humbling tactics that they use against exoticals actually contribute to their own strongholds. So I'm going to use the word strongholds because that's the best way I can describe it. I feel like a stronghold is an entire set of limiting beliefs that are stacked one on top of the other. So a limiting belief might be one sentence that your brain is telling itself, but a stronghold is when you've got trauma stacked up on top of each other to the point where now your entire worldview has been tainted. So I'm going to share this TikTok that I see a lot of Black women discussing in the Black empowerment space. And the caption says, Negro Woman Thoughts, Loss of Access to White Privilege in Interracial Relationships, Part 2. So first of all, it's interesting how she's calling herself a Negro woman. Would she be okay with white people calling her a Negro woman, or is this just a nickname she gives herself? So that's number one. But let's listen to the TikTok.
Things I did that made my ex-husband lose white privilege points. Because if you look at my other post where I talk about how your white partner in the interracial relationship is going to lose access to white privilege, some people were missing the point. Yes, sometimes I was just showing up and being like gorgeous and fabulous, and like that was enough to piss people off and then be like, you brought a Negro in here, get out. But most of the time I was just being authentically Black and causing them to have cognitive dissonance, and that was really what pisses them off. So when I was pregnant with our first child, we were in like a Lamaze, like first time parent class at the hospital, and there were like 15 couples in there. I was the only person of color, including the medical staff, and they had us go around and talk about our fears. And my fear was, and I quote, I am afraid of dying due to the insanely high maternal death rates for Black women in this country. No one made eye contact for the rest of the 90 minutes of the class, and then I was not called on anymore for the rest of the class. No, they did not like that. On a very expensive group trip.
Okay, I just had to pause it right there because she started off by saying, oh, these are the things I did that canceled my husband's white privilege. So the first thing that she messed up on is she did not define what his white privilege was before getting with her. She said that she was just showing up as authentically Black, and then people are like, oh, who's this Negro? Get her out of these spaces. I highly doubt that anybody actually said those words. So do you see how they do this thing where they project their own thoughts about themselves onto white people or onto, whatever person's not a part of their group? So she's assuming that when she walked into an establishment with her white husband, she's assuming actually that the people were thinking that. So once again, a lot of them, they don't offer any actual proof. They don't offer any quotes. And then her talking point about being authentically Black. What do you mean by authentically Black? Give me an example of someone who is not authentically Black. Because last time I checked, your Blackness doesn't get taken away because of something you do. No, if you're born Black or you identify as Black, then that's it. So what do you mean by, oh, I'm authentically Black? Blackness is not a competition. So that's another issue that I have. She's kind of intellectualizing her talking point. She's trying to sound more woke. That's the best way I can describe her talking points. And then she said that in the class, once she said she was scared of being unalived during childbirth, then she said that nobody else made eye contact with her during the class. Well, my question is, what are those white people supposed to do? When you say something like that, are they supposed to make eye contact with you? Are they supposed to smile and clap? Are they supposed to laugh? How are these random white people in a parenting class supposed to react to your deepest fears? Because them not making eye contact with you, that's not racist. So you guys saw my last video about Gigi. So apparently facial expressions are racist now. So she's giving the same talking point. She's saying that the white people didn't make eye contact with her, which is racist. So Gigi was racist because she looked over to the side at that guy and then she made a surprised facial expression. And now you got this woman saying that the white people in the parenting class were racist because they did not look her in the eye when she was talking about her fear of dying during her childbirth. So do you see how they're literally just calling anything and everything racist? Anything and everything is anti-black. If you don't kiss my behind, you're essentially racist. And this actually harms their social climbing goals because it makes people of other backgrounds feel like they have to walk on eggshells around unambiguous women because it's like, well, damn, I can't make facial expressions. I can't laugh. I can't sound surprised in my tone. If somebody says they prefer dark skinned Black women, I can't look away from the Black woman when she says she's afraid of dying in the parenting class. I am forced to make eye contact with her. If I don't swipe on her on a dating app, I'm racist and colorist. So, do you see how they create all of these random social rules and they try to project these things onto other people? Like, hey, if you want me to not call you racist, then this is what you have to do. But they're constantly moving the goalpost for what racism is and colorism.
Trip that we took with our temple to Israel because my husband's Jewish. I converted to Judaism. I spent the entire trip in Israel talking about how racist and apartheid-esque it was and asking when we were going to go see Jews of color because why were all the people and groups and cultural moments we were having, none of them were with Ethiopian Jews or even Sephardic Jews. I was like, everybody was from America. And I kept asking questions about that, and they didn't like that. And people were not making eye contact with us, and they were giving my husband dirty looks the whole time.
Okay, so then she says she went on a trip that is centered around their religious beliefs, Judaism. Okay, last time I checked, I thought that religious people, I thought that Jews are very inclusive. Like, them being racist is not a part of their religious beliefs. Like, when you go on these trips to Israel, when you go to these Christian churches, when you go to these mosques, and all of these religious establishments, they're not obsessed with race as much as a social justice warrior would be. And also, if you paid to go on a trip and somebody else is in charge of that trip, you don't get to tell them how to run their trip. If it was that serious for you to see Ethiopian Jews or whatever, you should have told your husband, hey, babe, I want to go to a place where they're showing Ethiopian Jews or all these different types of Jews. So you can't pay for a trip and then go and try to direct and steer and boss around the travel agents or the people who are in charge of it. Because she's basically admitting that she was in kind of this church establishment or basically like a missions trip or a church trip. And then she's telling the people, oh, well, you need to show Jews of color. You need to show these types of people. That's not how life works. That's not how businesses work. If you are that passionate about showing people of color, then why don't you go on your own trip or start your own agency or whatever where you take other people to see that? So do you see how that's an external locus of control? She was depending on the white rabbis or the white people in charge of this trip. She was depending on them to represent her. She was begging them to be her representation. She was begging them to show people of color, even though they already planned the trip. And that wasn't their priority. Their priority is God or prayer or kind of reading their holy books and stuff. They're not social justice warriors in all these different religions. That's different. Everybody doesn't intertwine politics with their religion. So you can't get mad at white people for not being experts on people of color. You would be the biggest expert on blackness, right? Seeing as you're unambiguous. So then you should be the one creating a space for other unambiguous people who are involved in Judaism. Why is it white people's responsibility to correctively promote you? Why is it non-Black people's responsibility to make you visible? So do you see how that's another one of their social climbing mistakes? And also, what does that have to do with your white husband losing privilege? How is that him losing privilege? Oh, so because I was basically a jerk and complaining on my trip the entire time, because I was complaining on the trip the entire time and trying to be a social justice warrior, then people gave me and my husband dirty looks. Well, I would give you a dirty look too, because I'm just trying to enjoy myself and enjoy the culture here. So just say you're monocultural and be done with it. See, that's the thing. This woman sounds extremely monocultural, and that's fine. If you're Afrocentric, that's totally fine. If you prioritize your Black identity above all the other aspects of your identity, that's fine. But you can't expect non-Black people to do the same thing.
So I brought up at a family dinner with my extended in-laws, including my sister.
And another thing I forgot to say too is if she was feeling uncomfortable, I'm wondering about the husband. Like, if she truly felt like these Jewish people were being racist against her or not promoting diversity, why would she not get her white husband to talk to them? Like, if you truly feel that left out, if you truly feel like they're not listening to you, you could have got your husband to have a conversation. So why didn't he do that? What type of man were you with? You know how they have this talking point where white men are zaddy? Okay, well, he must not have been that much of a zaddy because he clearly wasn't on board with your talking points if he wasn't defending you or if he wasn't the one speaking up. If you truly felt that uncomfortable, you could have left the trip. Like, if I go somewhere and the person I love is genuinely telling me that they feel like people are being racist against them, I would leave. I would get up and leave that establishment. I would get up and leave that church. I would leave that religion. So why did your white husband not leave? Why didn't you guys just get off the trip? You're exposing the fact that you're basically just exaggerating it. Clearly, it wasn't that bad if you guys stayed on the trip. Clearly, it must not have been that bad if the husband didn't even say anything. Oh, people are giving me dirty looks. Why are you so obsessed with how white people look at you? Do you see how a lot of these women, they have this mindset of seeing themselves through the eyes of racist white people? Everything is about how white people view me. Oh my God, these white women are giving me dirty looks. Oh my God, these white people didn't give me eye contact. Okay, so this woman is extremely obsessed with who's looking at her and who's not. So she's over here studying white people's micro expressions. She's over here studying how their eyebrows move, studying whether or not they're smiling, studying whether or not they give her eye contact. That's not racism. Not looking at you is not racism. Even if they are giving you a dirty look, giving a dirty look is actually not racism, because if you look up the definition of the word racism, it says that it's prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution on the basis of their race. So them giving you dirty looks, let's say they frowned at you or something. Me frowning at somebody is not racist. And even if they were frowning at you, they could have been frowning because you were the only one complaining during the entire trip and saying that you don't like the historical sites you're visiting at that trip, basically. You wish that they would have gone to an Ethiopian site or something like that. I would be frowning as well. So would I also be racist? So apparently frowning makes you racist.
Jews or even Sephardic Jews. I was like, everybody was from America. And I kept asking questions about that, and they didn't like that. And people were not making eye contact with us, and they were giving my husband dirty looks the whole time.
Oh, and by the way, somebody not liking the questions you ask, that is also not racism. People are not required to answer all of your questions. They're not required to accommodate you. So just because somebody doesn't like it, and how do you know that they don't like it, by the way? Did they say, I don't like your questions? Because they probably didn't even say that. She's probably assuming that they didn't like them because, they didn't smile or because they didn't change the itinerary on the trip and say, okay, yeah, let's not go to this historical site that we have scheduled and paid to go to. Let's instead drive 2 hours and go down to, where the Ethiopian Jews are, and let's go look at that instead. So apparently that's racism. If you do not cater to the type of vacation this woman wants, then you are now racist.
So I brought up at a family dinner with my extended in-laws, including my sisters-in-law, my brothers-in-law, that, when they were watching our kids or when my kids were like over for like play dates and stuff with mixed company, they were going to have to be mindful of who they invited because, they might have friends that are cool in their spaces. But when my mixed kids are over or when, their Black nephews were over, it was going, maybe to bring up some things, and they were going to have to basically be mindful and be a safe space for my children if they wanted to have access and have my children in their lives. And I said it in like the nicest way possible, but it was not okay. The notion that they would have to step to someone and compromise their access to their white privilege in order to create a safe space for my Black children was not okay. And it became a thing where my husband was berated by his family via text about how I cannot be showing up and saying crazy stuff like that anymore,
Okay, so now she's saying that she told her white in-laws that, oh, because my kids are Black or mixed, by the way, she changed the identities of her children within like 30 seconds. First, she called them mixed. Then she said she had a Black nephew. And then she said her Black kids. Okay, so we're going to ignore that flip-flop right there. But she said that, oh, you guys have to be mindful of who you keep around my kids because, my kids are Black. Okay, so that's still a very vague thing to say to your white in-law. I would be confused as well because it's like, okay, are you saying that the kids can only hang out with black people? They can only hang out with people of color? Like, which one is it? Name names, point fingers and name names. This is another classic social climbing mistake of black women who have inferiority complexes. They will tell you what not to do, but they won't tell you how to do it correctly. So in the case of her white in-laws, all she went up and said was, "Oh, don't put my kids around quote unquote white people, or don't put them around people who could possibly be racist. Don't put them around children who could possibly be racist." But then that's confusing because it's like, okay, who are these invisible racist children that you're talking about? I'm assuming that if you married a white man, and I'm assuming that if you felt comfortable enough to bring your mixed kids around the white in-laws, that they were probably not racist, right? Because most mothers, they would never purposely put their kids around racist family members. So if your white in-laws have never done anything racist, why are you randomly telling them, "Oh, make sure you don't bring any racist kids around them"? Why are you randomly telling that? That's accusatory language. You're randomly accusing your own in-laws of not creating a safe space for your children, and you're randomly assuming that they would invite racist children over. Yeah, I have a big problem with that. So if the white in-laws got upset, I would get upset at that too because it's like, well, we've never been racist towards you. We've never done anything bad to your kids. So do you see this mindset where they are anticipating colorism, texturism, featureism, and racism? So she's already defensive with her own family members when nothing has even happened to her children. Nothing bad has happened. So a lot of them struggle with hypervigilance. One of my psychological theories is that hypervigilance is kind of a side effect of PTSD. So that is when you're randomly suspicious of people, even if they haven't been racist. You're randomly suspicious that they could be racist or their kids could be racist. So you're creating all these walls. You're putting these walls up, and you're getting angry when nothing has even happened. You're getting pissed off when nothing has happened to the kids. If my in-laws have never had any problems with my kids, yeah, I'm not going to assume that they're randomly going to start having problems. That's incredibly disrespectful to your own in-laws. So which one is it? Do you like white people or not? It sounds, just based on the first 1 minute, it sounds like she actually doesn't even like white people, or she doesn't like white culture, or she thinks that, all of these non-black cultures are inherently racist. And it's like, okay, so just say you're Afrocentric and be done. Just go get with a black man then. Why would you marry into a white family and then assume that the in-laws are going to be racist? And then you make comments like, "Oh, well, be mindful of who you keep my kids around. You need to create a safe space for them so they don't experience racism." Once again, she's begging white people or demanding white people to create a safe space for black and mixed race people. Not only is that not their responsibility, but they're not even going to be as good at that as an actual black person. So why not just marry an actual black person then? Clearly, all these problems are literally just coming from the fact that she's monocultural. She wants to be in black spaces. But because she devalues black culture, she's trying to make Eurocentric spaces or Jewish centric spaces. She's trying to make those into Afrocentric spaces. And that's not how life works. That's not how society works. That's actually disrespectful to people of those cultures. I don't go into an Asian restaurant and then tell them, "Oh, excuse me, you need to be serving soul food here. You need to be inclusive to the African American community." No, it's their restaurant, it's their business, it's their culture. They have a right to engage in their culture however they see fit, even if it means they're not centering me. So do you see this internalized narcissism where it's like, no, everybody has to be Afrocentric because I'm Afrocentric. And if you're not Afrocentric, you're racist. So she's basically proving my point that she has this mindset of, if you're not Afrocentric, you're my enemy. You need to create a safe space for my mixed children, make it more Afrocentric. And then you don't tell them how to create a safe space. Like, if there are certain children you don't want your children around, name names. A lot of women with inferiority complexes in the black community, they're actually very bad at pointing fingers and naming names. Who are these invisible racist children that your in-laws brought around your kids? Who are they? Because it sounds like they didn't exist. It sounds like you just assumed, oh, my in-laws won't know how to create a safe space for my mixed kids. Okay, so then why marry into that family in the first place? You can't just come in and domineer and dominate and bully your own in-laws into having the same mindset as you.
Because I was visiting racism on everybody. I have been in rooms where people were talking about their investment deals, and a family member was bragging about how they had just bought a trailer park and were referring to the people who lived at this trailer park as cash cows. And I told him he was an asshole.
Okay, so referring to people as cash cows is not racist. Classist? Sure. You could say that that's classism. You could say that, the person thinks they're better or something like that, or he has classist tendencies. By the way, if you live in the United States of America and participate in capitalism, you are participating in classism as well. But calling people cash cows who live in a trailer park, that's not racist. And also the fact that she's assuming that the people in the trailer park are black, that's actually internalized racism. When I think of a trailer park, I don't think of black people. I'm just being honest. I personally don't think of black people. I think of poor white people. So I find it interesting that she's calling it racist. And also, if their family members are so horrible, why was she so desperate to get into that family? Why was she so in love with that white man? The white man, that guy that she married, he clearly was a product of his family. So all of his brothers, his sisters, his parents, his cousins, all of those people are the ones who helped influence and shape him. So this is how you get them kind of marrying into these quote unquote racist families. Number one, they're calling things racism that aren't racism. And number two, they're Afrocentric while trying to fit in Eurocentric spaces, or they will try to bully people into becoming Afrocentric who are not even black at all. A person who's not black at all, they wouldn't know anything about being Afrocentric. So the fact that she expects them to be that smart and that amazing and that multicultural to the point where they can become Afrocentric is silly.
Yeah, that was a lot of white privilege points, because you can't be talking about how they make their money and bringing morality and justice and like ethics into it.
Also, her calling wealth a white privilege experience, that's also internalized anti-blackness. Black people can buy trailer parks. Asian people can buy trailer parks. Do you know how much property China owns in the United States right now? So once again, her internalized inferiority complex is showing, because she's assuming that, because they're white, that's why they have this lifestyle. Because they're white, that's why they're making these comments. Because they're white, they can't create a safe space for my mixed kids. Because they're white, they don't know how to properly go on a tour for the Jews and show people of color in the Jewish community.
No. And there were also times when I didn't say anything. Just being in the room when unexamined whiteness is happening and people start to
Hold on a second. What is unexamined whiteness? What does that even mean? Do you hear how she's trying to intellectualize everything? Unexamined whiteness is happening. What do you mean by whiteness is happening? And what do you mean by it's unexamined? You're not the examiner of the white community. You're not the queen of the white community. It sounds like you don't like the white community, sis. Clearly, you are actually the racist one against white people or non-black people. So this is why a lot of them have a hard time in multicultural spaces, because they're so deep into monoculturalism. They're so deep into being Afrocentric to the point where they literally start becoming racist against everybody else.
Feel the prickle of just what they're saying and what they're doing is enough. A perfect example, we were, we were at a thing, and this guy was talking about how, his family made their money in agriculture, and how his great grandpa, answered an ad to come down from Pennsylvania in the late 1800s to Georgia. And they got this 100-acre pecan farm in South Georgia and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just looking at him, just smiling. In my head, I'm doing the timeline and the Trail of Tears. And I'm just oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this guy, racial violence in Georgia and all this kind of stuff. But I'm not saying anything. But I wasn't the only one doing the calculation and making the realization and connecting the dots. And that is why having Black people in these rooms is so agitating to them, because they cannot live in this fantasy world that they concoct, where it was their hard work, their good luck, and just a and quality opportunities just falling into their families' laps. They have to contend with the violence. They have to contend with the theft. They have to contend with the lack of morality and ethics that have gone into the acquisition of the power and the material wealth that they have.
Okay, so she's saying that her presence agitated this wealthy white man who was talking about coming from generational wealth. First of all, I doubt it, because if he truly was like racist and agitated and, now he has to think about how violent his family is, then he would have never made those comments in the first place. So clearly he felt comfortable enough around you, Black woman on the screen. He felt comfortable enough around you to where he had no problem talking about that. So saying that he was automatically agitated and that your presence just challenged him and that you didn't say a word and, he felt so perturbed. No, he didn't, because if people feel agitated and exposed, they don't keep saying things that will continue exposing themselves. So that man was comfortable with the fact that he came from generational wealth, regardless of how he got it. And once again, classism. She's conflating classism with racism. Okay, the United States right now is operating in a capitalistic system. You could argue that the United States enslaves people in third world countries. We have all kinds of people that work in sweatshops right now who are people of color, and we are profiting off of their labor. So this thing that you're doing where you're saying that it's racism, and by the way, I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm not saying that he couldn't have any internalized racism. But again, why are you continuing to go into these spaces if you think all these people are just so racist? And as a matter of fact, why not just say something in the moment? So you were scared to say something, it sounds like. You're scared to say, hey, the 1800s, oh yeah, that's when my family would have been slaves. Like I low-key would have said something sarcastic. If I was truly that upset and I really thought he was racist or something, then I would have said something. So it's like, okay, you have nothing to say in the moment. I've seen this pattern with a lot of unambiguous women. They have nothing to say to you in the moment. It's very similar to the Ice Spice and Baby Storm situation where Baby Storm was talking crap about that dark-skinned woman and Ice Spice was laughing along with her. And then later on, she comes and says, oh, actually, she was colorist. That's what this woman is reminding me of right now. So she had no problem sitting there listening to him talk about gaining generational wealth in Georgia. She had no problem just listening to him in the moment, but now she's coming on TikTok so she can get likes and views and saying, well, he was actually racist. Okay, well, if he's so racist and you're so good at standing up against racism and you truly feel like you can stop it or whatever, then why not say something in the moment? Why were you scared of him in the moment? Why were you scared to say something? Since you're so big and bad and Afrocentric and smarter than everybody and, you're more knowledgeable about going on these trips to see the Jews of color and you've got so many skills and, you're so articulate and woke, then why not say anything in the moment? Why did you cower at the presence of a white man? Do you see the inferiority complex coming out?
And you don't even have to say anything because they know. And so it's in the back of their mind and they don't want to deal with it. And so you being there is a problem and they are.
And then she says it's in the back of their mind and they don't want to deal with it. Okay, so just admit that you want white guilt. So you support white guilt, basically. You want him to feel guilty about the fact that his family happened to come from wealth. And we all know that's not how life works. That's not how human beings work. Everyone who becomes wealthy in this world has exploited somebody else. If you look at what it means to start a business, starting a business means getting something for cheap and selling it at a higher price, getting cheap labor somehow and selling it at a higher price. So I'm not saying that he's right and that this Black woman is wrong, but it's like, okay, if you want to bring smoke, bring smoke to everybody. Don't just stand there then and then not say anything and then later on come talk shit behind his back as if that's going to solve the problem. That doesn't solve the problem. And another thing too is that people cannot help where they come from. They can't help that they were born white. It's not their fault that they were born white or they were born Chinese or whatever. And yes, people do have dark family histories. They do. And the Black community would know this because they call their own mothers and fathers Dusties and they talk about their own parents being narcissists and stuff like that. So everybody has a dark family history. So it's like, okay, just admit that you wanted him to come from a perfect white family and then you were shocked and angry when you saw in real time that that's not where he came from and that the family wealth that he has was built upon the exploitation of black people, which is, it's debatable because she's kind of summarizing what he said, but let's just pretend that everything she says is accurate and that his family came to Georgia in the 1800s and that, they had slaves on their farm or something, or sharecroppers. By the way, the Civil War was from what, 1861 to 1865. So if they came in the late 1800s, yes, it would have been during segregation. But around that time, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of African Americans were sharecroppers and stuff. Some people are saying slavery didn't end in the South until later on. I'm not sure. But if you truly were thinking about all of this when he was saying that, you could have asked him. Just ask him right there on the spot. Why so scary? Why so scared? What happened to all this boldness and all this woke behavior that you're showing on this TikTok right now? Why not ask him, oh, hey, what year did slavery end down there in the part of Georgia where your family came from? Like, if it's that serious, if you're genuinely that offended, why not just ask him the question and expose him? Expose his ass then, if you truly felt like he was racist.
Going to make your spouse and you and anyone else who's with you pay for allowing them to feel bad about something that they would prefer not to examine in themselves. That's America, baby.
And then she says that's America, as if this is how all of America behaves. Also, if America is so racist or whatever, you have no problem living here. And this is the talking point I give to the people who complain about the United States. You got so much shit to talk about the United States, but your ass is still here. You're still here soaking up all of the capitalist benefits that you receive from being in a first world country. And by the way, slavery still exists in the world right now. So it's like, okay, do you really care about slavery, or do you only care about the slavery of African Americans? Which one is it? Because America is currently profiting off of cheap labor in other countries with people of color right now, as I'm recording this. So do you see how they pick and choose when they want to be a social justice warrior? And then another thing that I saw from this TikTok creator, she was talking about interracial relationships. And she said that a white man who's not racist will always think that a black woman is hot and cool. That is inaccurate. That's false. Someone doesn't have to be sexually attracted to you in order to prove that they're not racist. Another talking point I heard from that TikToker is that whenever there is a multiracial setting, that's when it becomes kind of dicey, because you've got people with all these different levels of privilege. So that's actually hierarchy thinking, talking about different levels of privilege. So in this woman's mind, white men are like the most privileged of everybody else simply due to their whiteness. And you guys already know that I don't believe that this is true, because there are different types of privilege. So your race can be a privilege, but your class, your geographical location, your family history, whether you have mental illnesses or not, whether you're able-bodied or not, all of those are also privileges or disadvantages as well. So privilege cannot truly be measured. You can't truly measure one person's privilege against the other in a way that is objective. This is a sociology channel, so we know that privilege is actually just another social construct. People break the rules of their quote-unquote privilege all the time. There are white people who become poor, or they stay poor, so that they're breaking the stereotype of their quote-unquote privilege. There are black people who become rich, so they broke the barrier. So there's no way that you can truly put privilege and identities on a hierarchy, because people break hierarchies all the time. They break stereotypes all the time. So if you start to have this hierarchy thinking, all you're going to do is place people in a box, and you're going to create a glass ceiling for yourself, or you're going to assume that other people have a glass ceiling because they're too dark or they're too black. There's no way you could be rich. There's no way you could be beautiful. You're too dark. So that's where all that mindset comes from, is actually hierarchy thinking. So a lot of women in the black community, they don't realize that their inferiority complex, it ends up affecting themselves negatively, because they themselves create a glass ceiling. They create a glass ceiling for themselves because they assume that white people are putting them, beneath them. And then it affects how they show up. Another talking point I hear from black women with inferiority complexes is, oh, I have friends of all races. Okay, well, I doubt it. Because if you have a mindset where you're like kind of this hotep, super Afrocentric person, Usually people who are multiracial or non-black, they're not going to be as Afrocentric as you. So I actually don't believe them when they say things like, oh, well, half of my friends are mixed or half of my friends are non-black. Are they your friends or are they just acquaintances? Because if you're walking around with a chip on your shoulder, or if you are assuming that everybody's going to be colorist, texturist, featurist, or racist, or that they have a superiority complex, they think they're better than you, then you're not really going to be their friend, or you're going to experience cognitive dissonance because you're going to be friends with this person and you're going to be constantly thinking to yourself, does she think she's better than me because she's lighter than me? Does she think she's better because she's white? Does she think that she's more desirable than me because she's Latina? So even if these women are friends with non-black women or ambiguous women, I feel like they would be constantly questioning themselves whenever they're around those women. And this is why some of you guys have experienced black women where they start off as your friend and then eventually they get randomly triggered by something. They get triggered maybe by your dating life or anytime they witness you receiving pretty privilege or, having access to things that maybe they don't have access to. But this is why some people shy away from being friends with monocultural black women, because it's like, okay, well, if I have to walk on eggshells, I can't look at you, but then I can't look away from you. And then I can't talk about my white background because you're going to assume that like I'm a colonizer or whatever. That's going to make me not want to be friends with you. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that they have where they're extremely unfriendly or they make negative assumptions. They're essentially prejudiced. That's really what the definition of prejudice is. You're prejudging somebody else based on their complexion, based on their racial background, based on their ethnicity. You're prejudging them in a negative way. You're assuming that they have a certain mindset when you have no proof of that, and then you're acting as if that's true. So it's almost like they're manifesting their own isolation. Also, YouTuber Chrissy in a recent live stream admitted at the 12-minute and 49-second timestamp that she is, in fact, ghetto. So thank you, Chrissy, for proving my talking point that you are a ghetto-ass 40-year-old woman with an inferiority complex. So if a woman is quote-unquote ghetto, that makes sense for her to feel like an imposter if she is in these super affluent, kind of classy spaces. That makes sense because being ghetto is a part of their identity already. So they're in a space where their identity is not celebrated. They're in a space where they feel like maybe they have to take on a new identity, or maybe they don't have a fluid identity. And I've heard a lot of Black people talk about the concept of code switching, but the way I view myself is that I already have a fluid identity. So I don't have to code switch. Like there is no separate code where it's like, oh, I can't speak how I normally am, or I have to change my entire accent or something like that, or I have to change what my hobbies are. But I think that the women who truly do identify with being quote unquote a ghetto Black woman, as Chrissy admitted, because she is a Black woman who identifies as ghetto. Okay, so if that is your identity, that makes sense that you would feel the need to try to almost switch your identity. And isn't it interesting how they accuse exoticals of jumping in and out of Blackness? So they accuse us of jumping in and out of Blackness. They accuse us of quote unquote code switching or trying to be white. They literally try to drag some of the exoticals for wearing blonde highlights in their hair, saying that, oh, you're trying to be white. And meanwhile, they're on their channels talking about code switching. They're on their channels talking about how they identify as ghetto, but they have to switch it up when they get into these classy settings. And I'm not even saying anything is wrong with you if you come from the ghetto or something, or if you have certain habits that you perceive as being ratchet or something. I understand everybody has their own background that they come from, but I have noticed a lot of Black women have a very hard time having a fluid identity that is authentic. So whenever somebody uses the phrase code switching, I feel like some people they genuinely feel inauthentic. They feel like they're not being themselves. And so that's what makes them feel uncomfortable in these affluent settings. They don't know how to speak the language of the people within that culture. They don't know what the inside jokes are. They don't understand the humor of those settings. Because I've also noticed too, even a difference in like my sense of humor with women who come from like Black culture and stuff. Like I've noticed that they have different memes that they share. And then if I go into a setting with my non-Black friends, we have different memes and different humor that we will talk about as well. Have you ever been around a Black woman where you guys are in a white space? Let's say it's you, an exotical, and then there's an unambiguous black woman, and let's say everybody else is like non-black. Have you ever had somebody go from being super extroverted and loud to suddenly becoming dead silent? Because I've actually been around black women like that, around unambiguous women like that. They will be super loud, they'll be the life of the party if we're around all black women, but then as soon as we get into white spaces, they become hella quiet. They have nothing to say. It's almost like their personality shrinks because they don't feel comfortable being themselves. And sorry if you hear something in the background. I'm warming up my pancakes right now. But I also heard content creator Chrissy talk about how if you want to level up and you want to stay there, you're going to have to do a dance. You're going to have to dance, kind of watch your step, almost like shucking and jiving. You're going to have to shuck and jive. You're going to have to buck dance in order to level up and stay there. Well, I strongly disagree with that. I believe that I can be successful while simultaneously being my authentic self. So no, I don't have to tap dance for anybody, not black people, not white people. I don't have to dance and perform and memorize an entire routine in hopes that I impress the people that are going to help me level up. I have an internal locus of control. So that means I have the power within myself to level up. I have the power to social climb within myself. I don't have to perform or try to get other people's acceptance. So that's another flaw in the mindset of black women with inferiority complexes. They think everything's a performance. When I'm around white people, I have to perform. I have to do this. I have to do that. Oh my God, but deep down inside, I'm actually ghetto. Okay, well, yeah, no wonder you feel like an imposter. Because you're literally stressing out trying to memorize your routine. I'm using it as an analogy. You're trying to memorize your social routine. You're trying to memorize your dance and make sure you don't miss a step. So it's that same mindset of actually walking on eggshells with others. So do you see how they end up projecting that onto you? They want you to walk on eggshells with them because deep down inside, they feel like they're walking on social eggshells in non-black spaces. A lot of unambiguous women feel like they don't have room to make social mistakes. They feel like they don't have room to mess up. And you'll hear them say this. You'll hear dark-skinned black women talk about this. And you will see this manifesting in the way they do their hair, the way they do their lace fronts. Have you ever noticed that a lot of them struggle really badly with perfectionism? So if my makeup is not slayed, if my lace front is not slayed, if everything about me doesn't look perfect, I'm going to feel like I failed. But it's like, okay, nobody's perfect. So I've noticed they put this pressure on themselves to perform, to do a dance, to make sure that nobody sees their flaws. And this is why a lot of them have a hard time admitting their flaws. A lot of them have a hard time being vulnerable. The phrase vulnerability, what that means is you're basically allowing other people to see your weaknesses. But a lot of them have been raised with the strong black woman trope. And so they have a hard time being vulnerable. They have a hard time admitting when they're not perfect. And by the way, vulnerability is one of the keys to feminine privilege as well. So that makes sense as to why a lot of them have this experience where they feel like they're being masculinized, not necessarily for their appearance, but maybe for their actual personality. Because if you're just putting on this mask, like, oh, I'm just this perfect black woman, I'm just this super smart, super articulate, super woke, politically aware black woman, and you constantly feel the need to perform and wear that mask, that sounds exhausting. That sounds extremely exhausting. And I've actually noticed this manifest in some of their online businesses. Like when you look at YouTubers, instead of them coming out and making videos saying, hey, you know what? The exoticals are right about this talking point. Or, hey, I want to follow up on my last video. Instead of doing stuff like that, no, they will just delete their content. They'll try to delete their content or hide it or something because they don't want anyone to see their flaws. They don't want to mess up on their social dance. They don't want to be seen messing up on their routine. So I think that's a very interesting talking point that I'm hearing from black women. This concept of code switching, but their version of code switching is like you have to do a dance. Like you have to literally perform. It's like buck dancing. It's like being the Joker or being the jester in the kingdom of white people. You know how back in the day they would have like the king and queen sitting on the throne and then they'd have the jester come in and entertain them? So it's almost like they feel this pressure to entertain these people that they feel are above them. And I don't feel the need to do that. I feel like my authentic identity, who I am at my core, is inherently worthy. I don't have to buck dance for anybody in order to prove my worthiness. I don't have to audition to be in your friend group. I don't have to audition to feel like I fit in the Pilates class or to feel like I fit in at the golf course or at the restaurant. I don't care if people are staring at me. Like I said, people staring at me, that's just proof that I'm visible. It's proof that I'm being seen. And honestly, I enjoy the attention. But that's another thing too. A lot of Black women will say that they want visibility, but then they get mad when they receive it. So that woman who was saying, oh, people were staring at her, well, if anything, at least she's visible. But she felt like she wasn't being visible in the way that she wanted to be visible. But anybody who actually is on a pedestal, like we know here in the Pretty Girl Club, that when you're visible, guess what? You're going to have people giving you looks of admiration, and you'll also have haters. You're going to have people giving you dirty looks. So if you're too scared, if you're scared of haters or you're scared of like isms, definitely don't get on a public platform. Definitely don't stand out in any way. Just go back to being invisible and be quiet. Another thing I heard on Chrissy's video at the 14-minute and 30-second mark is she said to Black women, like, you're going to have to dance. You cannot be your authentic self. Okay, first of all, that's disempowering because you're implying that Black women's authentic selves it's inherently not good enough. And it's like, why are you assuming that your Black audience is going to be rejected? You know, you being your authentic self, you'll be rejected. Everybody else in this world can be their authentic selves. They can be nerdy, they can be dorky, they can fit stereotypes, they can not fit stereotypes, they can have a multifaceted identity, but you, unambiguous Black women, you guys don't get to be your authentic self because you're dark-skinned, because you're Black. So you can't be authentic because of your Blackness? Do you hear how disempowering that is? Do you hear how that's actually an extremely anti-Black talking point? You're literally telling the audience of hundreds of thousands of dark-skinned Black women that who they are is not good enough to be acceptable. Your personality is unacceptable. Your quirks are unacceptable. And even in the case of the Black woman that was like a social justice warrior, I actually don't believe that is who she is authentically. I believe that she probably has lots of like great qualities. She probably has some quirks and some funny jokes that she tells and stuff. I actually think that the social justice warrior or the woke mindset, I think that that's more of a mask that a lot of Black women put on. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you examine little Black girls from childhood, a lot of them are not protesting and talking about racism as their main personality trait. No, a lot of little Black girls, they're out playing on playgrounds just like other children. They are drawing, they are doing other hobbies. So I think their issue is that they're making politics into the center of their identity. They're centering their identity around politics, or they're centering their identity around their own traumas. This is a very common issue that we see in the Black community, centering your identity around traumas. And some people say, oh, well, Exoticals United, you guys talk about pretty girl problems. And it's like, yeah, but there's a difference between experiencing a trauma and centering my identity around traumas. If I truly had a trauma-centered identity, I wouldn't even identify as Black. I wouldn't even interact with the Black community. I wouldn't have gone to an HBCU. I wouldn't have any Black friends. So the fact that I'm still able to do those things tells you that clearly my traumas of the Black community, I don't center myself around them. It doesn't define me. My negative experiences don't define who I am as a person. It doesn't define my life. I've also noticed that YouTuber Chrissy is now backtracking on her talking points, saying that Black women and the significant others of Black women will lose their privilege because Black women bring up race at inappropriate times, or they're fighting racism and kind of centering their identity around fighting racism. Okay, so if you agree with my talking point, Chrissy, about how centering your identity around isms is bad, then why did you and thousands of other Black women create YouTube channels where you spent over a decade centering your entire online business around talking about isms and then telling your Black audience talking points about how basically they can't be their authentic selves? They don't get the luxury of being their authentic selves. They don't get the luxury of living fully in their own identities because they're Black. So you're admitting that it's a bad social climbing tactic while simultaneously performing that bad social climbing tactic. Do you see the hypocrisy? Chrissy also said that she doesn't like talking about race to people who can't relate to her experience. Okay, so then, Chrissy, why do you promote the talking point that dark-skinned Black women need to be correctively promoted in white Hollywood? White executives in Hollywood cannot relate to the experiences of dark-skinned Black women. So which one is it? Do you want white people to be able to relate to you and kind of empathize and get in your shoes and correctively promote you? Or do you feel like, hey, they can't relate, so I don't want to talk to them about that anyway? If you don't want to talk to people who can't relate to you about your experiences, then you cannot pressure those people to represent you either. And also when it comes to the colorism talking point, if you are a dark-skinned, unambiguous black woman, why do you expect light-skinned women to randomly stand up for colorism and be social justice warriors about colorism and texturism or featureism? Women who don't even have those hair textures, don't even have those features, and then have the audacity to call them colorist if they don't understand what it's like to be unambiguous. Why is it that women expect white men to date them, or, they'll make these talking points like, if you don't date me, you're colorist. But it's like they can't relate to your experiences. So it's okay to not be able to relate to other people's experience unless it's a dark-skinned black woman that you can't relate to. Then you're colorist or racist. And also coming online publicly and saying that people will lose their privilege if they marry a black woman, that's not a very good incentive to get these non-black men to date you. Just saying, that's not a very good social strategy. Oh, hey, if you date me as an unambiguous black woman, you're going to suffer, you're going to lose privilege, your lifestyle is going to go downwards. You're going to be on a downward trajectory if you date me as an unambiguous black woman. Oh, but you should still date me. And if you don't date me, you're racist. Another talking point that I hear in pro-black women's spaces is hypergamy or nothing. Date hypergamously. But then they do not describe exactly what their standards are for hypergamy. So that's actually not helpful to the black audience. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss that here. What's the average income of a black woman in the United States? According to Google, it says the average income is $40,000, $40,500 annually. Okay, so hypergamy is when you're dating someone with the same social or financial status, if not higher than yours. So technically, if a black woman were to marry a man who makes $50,000, that would technically be financial hypergamy. But is that truly what these women are saying? Are they truly out here trying to get men who make $50,000? Absolutely not. They're trying to actually get rich men. But they don't say that. Their talking points and their advice that they give to black women is too vague. And this is why you see a lot of black women who are resorting to spying on the exoticals to see what we're doing. It's because they just give you these generalized terms like, oh, just be hypergamous. But hypergamy, you could be a little bit hypergamous. If you make a lower income yourself, technically anybody who's middle class, that would still be hypergamy. But then when they give examples of these hypergamous kings, like Russell Wilson, for example, or like Jalen Hurts or somebody like that, these men are actually rich. They're actually multimillionaires. So they won't admit that deep down inside they want rich men, or men who, it could even be like, let's say it's a guy who makes six figures or something like that. Okay, so why don't they ever tell their black audience the specifics of what they mean when they even use phrases like hypergamy? My question for Black Women Empowerment YouTube channels is, what income level do you promote unambiguous black women to date? 6-figure men, 7-figure men, 8-figure men? What's the bare minimum? What is the minimum threshold of a man's income for a black woman to view him as worthy financially? What's the bare minimum income? And what about blue collar versus white collar men? Because we know that there are truck drivers who make $100K. So do you care about that? Like culturally, blue collar men versus white collar men? I mean, you guys know me. I do not tend to date blue collar men just due to cultural differences. I have more of a corporate type of background, and I kind of fit in more to corporate culture as opposed to blue collar. So there are so many nuances that these black level up content creators never talk about. And this is why you've got hundreds of thousands of black women instead flocking to exoticals. They're flocking to multiracial women's level up content, such as Shira 7, because her content is literally better than what you would get in these unambiguous spaces. I've also noticed how Chrissy is now backtracking on her talking points, and she admitted that most black women would not have access to the type of man that like Meghan Markle would have access to, for example. Because a lot of unambiguous black women, they live vicariously through mixed race women. They live vicariously through their relationships and stuff. And this is why I told you that it's all just limerence. Limerence is just a fantasy or obsession over the type of man you'll never have. And so now you've got Chrissy herself admitting like, hey, audience, you guys are most likely not going to attract anyone that's anywhere near this level. If you do date a white man, he's not going to be anywhere near that level of wealth or that level of status. So she's actually implying that Meghan Markle does, in fact, have privilege that grants her access to some rooms that unambiguous women would not have access to. So it's like, okay, which one is it? Does mixed race privilege exist or not? Does light skin privilege exist or not? Does cultural, multicultural privilege, does that exist or not? It's interesting how now you've got Chrissy backtracking and admitting that those privileges do in fact exist, and that exoticals are the ones with that privilege. And this is why you see us represented more in high-level spaces, whether we are monoracial or multiracial. Dark-skinned or light-skinned, we're still outnumbering them in these high-level spaces, which is why they use us as their standard of living, their standard of dating, and their standard of leveling up. Because whenever they talk about leveling up, I've never heard them talk about leveling up while mentioning only unambiguous Black people. Never. Not one. Anytime they talk about hypergamy, leveling up, and they start giving examples, whether it's of a woman or a man, it's always somebody who benefits from either colorism, texturism, featureism, or mixed race privilege. I've never heard them mention unambiguous Black men in particular as anything hypergamous or leveled up. And I've also never heard them mention anyone unambiguously Black as a woman who is their example of leveling up. And if they do try to do that, they end up getting embarrassed once that woman gets treated like trash. For example, Jodie Turner-Smith. They tried to use Jodie Turner as an example of, oh, look at her, she leveled up, she got with this white man. And then come to find out, she proposed to him. He was over here cheating on her several times. So anytime they've tried to use a woman from their own group as their example, they end up getting embarrassed. And so now they're backtracking after the exoticals have called that out. Now they're backtracking saying, oh, well, you guys won't have access to these types of men, these high-level, wealthy European men. Another thing that I heard YouTuber Chrissy say is that Black women are allowing others to scare them out of swirling. Chrissy, who's scaring unambiguous Black women out of swirling? Point fingers and name names. What content creators are you talking about? Who has that much social power over unambiguous Black women to the point where we can control their emotional state and cause them to become afraid because we are uploading YouTube videos? Like, who are these invisible gatekeepers of the non-Black communities that you're talking about? Oh, well, people are trying to scare Black women out of swirling. Who's scaring them out of swirling? Because last time I checked, you guys just admitted that you yourselves are scared of being in a room full of white people. You're scared of racism, colorism, texturism, featureism, misogynoir. So why are you randomly blaming other invisible people online? Like, oh, everybody's scaring them out of swirling. No, you guys are scared because you understand that by swirling, you are promoting multiculturalism, which builds the pedestal of exoticals. You're creating more mixed race people, which builds the pedestal of exoticals. Or you have to admit that the exoticals are right when we talk about our fluid identities and how that makes it easier for us to navigate in different spaces. So either way, no matter which way you spin it, any form of swirling or multiculturalism is not only building this YouTube community, but it's acknowledging the fact that the exoticals were right in our talking points about how the more allies you have of other cultures and the less racist you are and the less inferiority complexes you have, the more you can succeed. Another talking point I heard is that people are using examples of failed swirlers or kind of like Black women in bad relationships, that we're using that to scare Black women into only being with Black men. But it's like, no, according to you guys' own talking points, go to Cynthia G's channel right now. She talks about how a lot of Black women are single mothers because they get with Dusties. Whether it's a Black man, white man, doesn't matter. So that's you guys' own talking points that you guys have been promoting. It's that you have it hardest, you guys are the last to get married or whatever. That's something that came from the Black community. I've never heard white people say that talking point. Those are all talking points from the unambiguous community themselves. And also, if unambiguous Black women are so good at relationships and marriage and they have so many great examples, why do Black women such as Chrissy never show any actual examples? Who are these beloved unambiguous Black women in these mystical perfect marriages that Black women are supposed to follow? Name names and point fingers. Why are there never any examples of unambiguous women who have success in this area? Why are there never any pictures shown? Why are they always pictures of like mixed women like Meghan Markle or, people that are with mixed race men or light-skinned men? Why are there never any examples of unambiguous Black women in these successful, hypergamous, great marriages? And then people will say, oh, it's because they're trying to protect their privacy. Okay, so then why can't you name famous people then who are in the public eye? because everybody is not trying to protect their privacy. There are some unambiguous black women who are public figures. So why can you never name any of those types of women? And if you do name those types of women, it'll be an unambiguous black woman married to a white man who creates mixed race babies. So no matter which way you spin the level up talking points, mixed people, quote unquote, light-skinned people, or black people who benefit from the isms, we will always be a part of the picture. There's no way that we can be excluded from being successful or from being leveled up. And I think that that was the main purpose of a lot of these women's talking points. They saw themselves as being in competition with the exoticals. They saw themselves as being in competition with these black women who benefit from isms. And then when they finally realized, oh shit, there's no way we can exclude them. There's no way that we have anything over them socially. There's no way that we can attain a lifestyle that a quote unquote light-skinned woman can't attain herself. So I noticed that once they realized that, then they suddenly tried to change their tune and backtrack their talking points. I also heard the talking point that if I'm going to do a dance and basically shuck and jive, I want to make sure that I'm in a space where I get the most privileges possible, which is usually not a black space. Okay, so then why are you so upset about multiracial women who like to socialize in non-black spaces? Why are you guys coming over to the exotical space projecting onto us and saying, oh, well, white people will never accept us or the non-black side will never accept us, while simultaneously trying to do an entire dance so you can be accepted by them socially? So do you see the hypocrisy? So they're telling you that you're wrong for doing something, but then they're doing the exact same thing. I've also noticed they're trying to do the whole black mothers versus black father thing. So they're saying like, oh, well, if you have a black mother, you're going to be more privileged versus if you have a black father because, you know, the man's the head of the household and black men are bad at, I guess, protecting and providing or whatever. So if you have a black father, you're going to be the most leveled down. But then it's like, okay, so what does that say about you then as an unambiguous, dark-skinned black woman? Who's your father? Because it's not a white man. So do you see how in order for them to diss us, they have to diss themselves? Another talking point I heard is that they feel stuck in the black community. Okay, well, what does that even mean? What does that word mean, being stuck? It means that you feel like you cannot be moved. You can't make progress. You can't switch positions. You're clinging to one thing. You're adhering to the box of blackness, you know, whatever that means to you. They feel stuck in their own identities. They feel stuck in their own culture. Well, why would they feel that way? Well, it's because a lot of them are actually bad at multiculturalism. Because what cancels out multiculturalism is monoculturalism, aka black supremacy, dark skin supremacy. You can't be a dark skin supremacist and then create mixed race babies. You're going to have cognitive dissonance if you create a light skin baby as a dark skin supremacist, because you're going to have to build up the self-esteem of that light skinned child. You're going to have to celebrate the beauty of that little light skinned child. So a lot of them feel stuck because they have these limiting beliefs. They have these mindsets where it's almost like they feel like it's a betrayal if they leave their black identity. And that's why they project it onto us exoticals who have fluid identities. They try to make us feel guilty for being able to successfully navigate in non-black spaces. And especially when it comes to your phenotype too, like if you have kind of this ambiguous phenotype, maybe you just change your hair and then suddenly, you know, you look like you're from a different ethnicity or something. A lot of them will get extremely mad at that because they don't have that ambiguity. They don't have ambiguity in their facial features. They don't have ambiguity in their skin tone, according to themselves. So no matter what hair texture or wig or whatever they put on, they still look like an unambiguous monoracial dark-skinned black woman, and they don't like that. A lot of them feel stuck in that. So that's why they feel the need to call out when you're wearing a wig, when you're wearing a weave, if you're wearing contacts or something like that. Because for a lot of them, if they wear contacts, they look like an unambiguous woman who put on contacts. It doesn't look like, oh, that eye color runs in her family because, you know, her facial features look like she could actually be related to someone with that eye color. No, they don't have the same experiences. And now they're finally acknowledging it with the rise of the exotical space. Have you ever been around a black woman that has a hard time having fun? Like maybe you go to a vineyard, you go to a Renaissance festival, you go to a medieval times festival, you go to something where there are majority white people, and it's like she can't have fun. It's almost like she becomes stiff or she kind of recoils into this shell Well, that's because a lot of them are bogged down with the weight of the world, constantly wondering and suspicious about everyone being racist against them. So that's why a lot of them can't have fun. That's why a lot of them act very cranky. Have you ever met a black woman that acts like a cranky old lady? That's where the bitter stereotype comes from. It's not that all of them actually are bitter, it's that the ones who actually do act like a cranky old lady, you can't make a joke, you can't have fun, you can't go into white spaces. Oh my God, this place is too white. They don't have any black stuff here. Oh, this is French roast coffee, not African coffee. Oh, we need to go to a black-owned vineyard. We need to go to a black-owned country club. Why is everything owned by white people? Those types of women, those are the ones who get called bitter. It's the ones who act like a cranky old lady. Nothing's ever good enough for them. The venue's not black enough. The food is not seasoned enough. The music is trash. This is white people music. Oh, this DJ sucks. Like, I've been around some black women where they will complain about the DJ at a venue because the DJ is not playing like twerking music. So a lot of black women have a hard time enjoying themselves in non-black spaces because they don't associate non-black spaces with fun. It's not fun for them to be in a non-black space, even though they lie and say that it is. It's not. It's not fun for you to be in non-black spaces because you have that constant fear of isms. And then you feel excluded because the music doesn't represent you or the beauty standards don't represent you. Like, if I go to an Italian festival, I'm not expecting them to have black people at the forefront of that. No, it's a European style festival. It's the Italian festival. It's the Greek festival. This is the Irish festival. Why would I get mad that they don't have black people there when it's literally not a part of black culture? So it's almost this narcissistic viewpoint that you have to center everything around them. You have to make sure you don't offend them, but then you don't know when they're going to get offended. These are all symptoms of PTSD. So a lot of them have PTSD from their own race, PTSD from being black, PTSD from being dark skinned, PTSD from their 4C hair or their features or whatever it is they feel the inferiority complex about. This is also why a lot of them get extremely pissed off when they see that you are having fun at the non-black function. Are you one of those girls who maybe you're monoracial, but you're multicultural? So you can go to the salsa event. You can go to the square dancing event. You can go to the clog dancing events or the Irish festivals where they've got the bagpipes, and you're going to have fun. You're going to wear a cute little plaid skirt, a cute little corset, wear your hair in 2 braids like a milkmaid or something, and you have fun at those events. And then you'll just see this unambiguous woman in the corner getting super mad at you or feeling like you're weird because you like stuff that is not associated with black culture. Have you ever met the black girls who are into anime and stuff like that? And then you'll have other black people saying, oh, well, that's nerdy. Oh, well, that's not black. Oh, well, you're not Asian. And it's like, you don't have to be Asian in order to enjoy a part of the Asian culture. I've also heard some YouTubers say that black women need to only talk about colorism and all that when they're around other black women. Okay, so then that would mean you guys need to get off the internet then, because the internet is not a black space. The internet is an international space with an international audience. So you're kind of negating the purpose of your own YouTube channels by saying that black women should only talk about that when they're only around other black women. Okay, so then why would you go to the internet of all places to discuss how much you hate your 4C hair? You guys should have kept that off the internet then. So you're agreeing with my talking points once again. And that also would explain why them coming on the internet with these ism channels, it harmed their collective image, because you got all these people who are not unambiguous, where it's like they've never even heard of these things. Like, I have to be honest, I had never even heard of some of this stuff until college? Some of the isms and experiences that they talk about, I had never even thought of that in my mind. Like, when I'm around a dark-skinned black person, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, okay, they're dark-skinned. I'm not judging their skin tone or something, or like trying to place them on a skin tone scale in my mind. So a lot of them contributed to the decline of their own public image by making tens of thousands of videos talking about how much it sucks to be them, and how their phenotype sucks, and how they feel like they're on the losing team, and how everybody else is their competition. All the other women of all the other phenotypes are their competition. And I keep hearing this talking point of, oh, black women, you need to explore your options. What options? Because a lot of you guys have said that you're not getting picked on dating apps by white men. A lot of you guys have said that you've never been kissed, or you're having all these struggles in the dating market. So what options? If 80% of Black women are obese, then I'm curious to know what exact options they're talking about, especially hypergamous, swirling options, or even if it's just with men within their culture. I'm curious to know what these options are, because the main ones who are telling Black women about all their options, if you look at those women's relationships, or if you listen to their content, they will talk about how they've been with high-functioning alcoholics, how they were engaged for 8 years. They'll talk about how they paid all the bills, how their white husband was like living in a basement or something. So it's like, what options are you guys telling Black women to have? And also, why is everything male-centered in the first place? Because another thing they're saying is, oh, well, I'm still living better than you because I have a white man and you have a Black man. Okay, what about those of us who are not married? Why can't we just be single and like be successful and enjoy the money that we have and take ourselves on a trip? Or you can still date. You don't have to be married in order to go on a trip. So what about the women who are just getting taken on trips by their boyfriend or a guy they're dating? Why are those women always left out? Why is it just, the pinnacle of success is marrying a white man, and then if you're single or if you're with a Black man, then like you're a loser and you failed? That's the part I don't like, because you're creating hierarchies based on race, and you're also creating hierarchies based on relationship status, as if the only way to level up in life and have a soft life is if some man picks you. And another thing they're saying is like, no matter what, you're gonna have to play the game. And it's like, okay, I want to play my own game though. I don't want to play in somebody else's game. So there's a thing called alchemy. There's a thing called leveling up. Different people have different level up strategies. So just because you can't succeed without playing somebody else's game, it doesn't mean that I'm the same way. I created my own job. I created my own multifaceted identity that I adhere to. I have my own sense of style, my own sense of fashion, my own sense of beauty, etc. So I don't have to play somebody else's game. And this is why a lot of Black women are always 10 steps behind. It's because they're playing somebody else's game. Oh, what's the trend in the media? Oh, it's to have these lace fronts on with the baby hairs. Okay, let me do the lace front with the baby hair. And it's like, okay, what if that hairstyle doesn't really look that great on you? So you're playing somebody else's game. You're following somebody else's standard as opposed to creating your own internalized standard. So do you see how it all goes back, once again, to their external locus of control? Like, okay, what kind of game are they playing? Let me play the same game. Oh, what kind of office politics do they have going on? Let me play office politics. I don't want to play office politics. I don't have to, actually. My credentials can get me a different job. Without me having to kiss somebody's ass, I can start my own business. Without me having to kiss my boss's ass or something, I can do a side hustle. I can invest and make passive income off my investments. Like, there are so many different strategies to leveling up. Leveling up is not a monolith. And I think that's where a lot of Black content creators get it wrong, because they have these talking points where it's like, okay, leveling up is based on proximity to whiteness. Leveling up is based on the kind of man that chooses you. Leveling up is based on colorism, texturism, or featureism. So they have a very closed-minded way of viewing leveling up. And that's why they feel like they're playing in somebody else's game. They feel like they're just a pawn on somebody else's chessboard. And it's because they're externalizing their power. They're giving their power to their boss or to their man or to, I don't know, Hollywood's beauty standards. They talk about that. Oh, well, I'm ugly because I don't meet Hollywood's beauty standards. Who said you have to follow Hollywood's beauty standards? The fuck? Hollywood doesn't control my life. And also, when it comes to this whole concept of playing the game or dancing or performing, who am I playing the game for? Who am I performing for? And what is the prize that I win at the end of this game? So do you see how I'm still making others the prize? Like, what prize do I get for performing for white people or performing for this man to pick me or auditioning? What's the prize? You're basically admitting that you think the man is the prize. You think white validation is the prize. And it's like, no, I get to choose whatever I think my prizes are, and I will give myself that prize. For example, with money, I give myself the prize of money by creating my own job, aka creating a YouTube channel, which I hope everybody from the Pretty Girl Club is doing. Whether you're showing your face or not, you basically can't lose on YouTube. The only way that you can lose on YouTube is if you stop uploading content. So it's like, there's no point in spending my life trying to play somebody else's game. I'm better off creating my own game, creating my own world for myself, because I'm the only one who's living in my world. I'm the center of my life, because I'm only living life in my body. So why should I be so concerned with trying to figure out everybody else's perception of me? That's impossible. You can get clues into how people perceive you. There are some cases where you may be able to manipulate how people perceive you. And I talk about that in the Patreon. But it's like, ultimately, I don't know everything that everybody's thinking about me. And even if everybody thinks of me highly, it doesn't necessarily equal success. Because a lot of us come from backgrounds of being a people pleaser. You know, I've been a people pleaser before. So yeah, people loved me a lot. They really liked me, but they didn't necessarily respect me. I didn't necessarily get everything I wanted because I was trying to play somebody else's game. So this whole concept of, oh, you got to dance for them, you got to perform for them. Okay, well, that is still, it's performative. It's not authentic. It's a performance that you have to rehearse. You're on a stage and you're being judged by other people. You know, you're allowing other people in society to essentially give you a performance review. And Black men have taken advantage of this. They've taken advantage of Black women's insecurities, and they'll tell those Black women, oh, you know, Black women are performing badly. They're a 6 out of 10, or they're not as good as Latinas or whatever. So you want to be careful with this performance talking point, because then you're externalizing your power. You're giving the power to the male gaze, or you're giving the power to somebody else. And then if that person really wants to screw you over, all they have to do is start putting you down. And then they can easily chip away at your self-esteem. So it makes sense as to why a lot of women who watch this content and soak it in, why they feel so down on themselves. Another thing I found interesting that Chrissy talked about was how if you opt out of playing other people's game, so kind of this game of like buck dancing or seeking the approval in order to privilege stack. By the way, my privilege stacking strategy is the exact opposite. It's more about internal locus of control, internal validation, meeting your internal beauty standard, meeting your own standards for success, etc. But she talked about how when you try to kind of create your own lane outside of that, then it's very unstable. And then she goes on to talk about how her YouTube, like the income and having your own business, how that can be unstable because the trends change and like one day you're popular, the next day you're not. Okay, so my response to that is you shouldn't be starting a business so you can follow a trend anyway. Like when I started this YouTube channel, this is probably one of the most unpopular YouTube channels. This channel is extremely unpopular. My talking points are extremely unpopular opinions for now. But I didn't come on YouTube or start my own online business so I could hope that my business would align with the trends. So do you see how even that was still an external locus of control? Kind of this mindset of, oh, well, you know, colorism's popular, so let me start a colorism channel. So that tells me that the start of the channel was not actually genuine then. Because now you're leaving the core audience of your channel. You're basically leaving them behind and you're saying, I'm no longer discussing this topic. That would be like if I were to say I'm no longer discussing exotical topics ever again. It's like, why would I do that? The whole purpose, the whole reason I started this channel, what inspired this channel was my plight and being called a quote unquote exotical as an insult back when I used to show myself on YouTube. And then, you know, creating an entire movement out of it. So that tells me that even the YouTube channel itself was started out of an external locus of control. And if you are an exotical YouTuber, when it comes to trends changing, you have the right to create, you know, just create a variety of content. That's what I do. I create exotical content, but then I also talk about whatever else I'm interested in. So if I'm interested in talking about femininity at that time, or if I am inspired by something, then I'll talk about it. So just because you start off with one thing, it doesn't mean that you can't grow and expand. But I've noticed that instead of growing and expanding, the Black empowerment space has started to shrink. And now they're all running from their talking points because they can't handle this smoke from the exotical sector. And they're basically having this mindset of, if you can't beat them, join them. The exoticals have literally, not only have we destroyed several movements on YouTube, we literally destroyed the Black empowerment space, destroyed the golden sphere, destroyed the Black femininity sector now. Now they're actually leaving the Black femininity sector because I called out, and the other exoticals called out, how a lot of their femininity talking points were male-centered, white male-centered, or centered around what white people think of them or what white people are doing. So it was still an external locus of control. Whereas if you go on to the exotical channels, a lot of our content, even if it's about femininity or something like that, it's more so based on things like psychology. It's based on sociology. We actually use legit psychology talking points in order to describe what we're talking about, whereas other women they were being followers, essentially. So I'm starting to notice this pattern with a lot of Black women just constantly being on somebody else's bandwagon, constantly following behind somebody else's coattails. Like, oh, what are the trends? Oh, what's popular? Okay, let me try to talk about that because it's popular. Let me do my hair and makeup like this just because it's popular. That shouldn't be the only reason you're doing something. You want to figure out a way to stand out and be unique because that's what's going to build your brand. That's what's going to make you stand out. So like what makes my channel stand out is, the fact that this channel has brought back nuance. I've never heard anybody even use the word nuance until this channel and the exotical sector came into play. That's when people suddenly started wanting to discuss nuance. And then suddenly they want to make everything decentered from men instead of making pretty privilege. Oh, it's all about what a man thinks. Oh, femininity. It's all about if a white man chooses you. So once we came on the scene, now they're trying to backtrack, and then they're admitting that basically they were kind of being influenced by the different trends or almost following the trends, or maybe even starting an entire channel just because of a trend, as opposed to being authentically themselves and starting a channel and having talking points that are based on their own experiences. Like when I started this channel, it was based on my own story, my own experiences with the Black community, with the non-Black community, being thrown in and out of Blackness, having people argue about my phenotype, arguing about my hair texture, arguing about my features. So that was my experience. I just came on here hoping that others would be able to relate. I didn't think that many people would be able to relate. I never thought this channel would get monetized when I first came on here. I was just coming on here because I was trying to express a part of myself. And then, I was hoping that maybe somebody could be moved by that. But if you listen to what they were saying over on the Black Empowerment YouTube channels, they're saying, oh, this is so hard. It's so hard to wake up and do YouTube every day. It's so hard to do an online business. It's definitely not harder than working a 9 to 5. I can tell you that for damn sure. And I've worked all kinds of jobs. It's definitely easier. I actually love what I do here on YouTube. That's a part of why I've created over 1,000 videos at this point. And by the way, that was my goal, so I'm really excited. I finally created over 1,000 videos. That's amazing that we even have 1,000 talking points on this channel. That's incredible that we've got that much anecdotal evidence to support our talking points. And we're only just getting started. This channel only has, 33,000 subscribers? So as the years go on, this channel is definitely going to keep growing and stuff, but that's why it's also important to make sure you're operating in your actual gifts and talents and make sure you actually love what you're doing. Because when you love what you're doing, it does not feel as hard. And I'm not saying that you won't have challenges. Like when I made this channel, I do have technical difficulties sometimes. StreamYard gets on my fucking nerves sometimes. How it cuts my audio in and out, depending on my Wi-Fi. So sometimes I've had technical difficulties, but it's never enough to talk me out of discussing exotical talking points. Nobody will ever be able to bully me off YouTube. And that's another thing too. People have gone out of their way to try to dox exoticals. They tried to dox me or whatever. And it's like, if I truly was a liar or a fraud or felt like I was being exposed, then I would have actually got off YouTube. I would have actually done like Chrissy and Paris Milan and just deleted my whole channel, or I would have changed my entire talking points then. But I didn't do that. So that's how you know that what I'm saying over here, that I stand 10 toes down. That's how you know that the exoticals stand 10 toes down, because we didn't come on here lying and pretending and being fraudsters and like saying that we got a totally different lifestyle than what we have. We got a totally different phenotype than what we have. No, we actually came on here legit and being authentic within ourselves as opposed to trying to play somebody else's game. And then this whole talking point of being an entrepreneur is unstable as fuck. Yeah, it is when you're bad at it. So if anything, Chrissy is just exposing herself. Like, yeah, it's extremely unstable when you're bad at it, when you're bad at time management. If you're scared of people's opinions, then yeah, it's unstable doing online influencing and stuff. Yeah. But if you love what you're doing and if you got a strong mind and you know who you are, and if you don't allow other people to bully you out of your talking points, then it's actually not unstable, especially if you have the good time management skills. And you just wake up, you kind of have a routine going, or you know when to break in and out of your routine, you know when to take a break, when not to. If you're good at emotional regulation, then it's actually not unstable. Your online business, being an entrepreneur, your business is a direct reflection of your mindset. It's a direct reflection of your emotional state. So if your business is extremely unstable, well, bitch, that just tells me you're mentally unstable. You're extremely unstable. You don't know how to show up for yourself when nobody else is showing up for you because you did it seeking external validation. So not only did you start it for the wrong reasons, but you're continuing for the wrong reasons. That's why you're unstable. It's because you just go with the wind. So if your subscribers start unsubscribing, you get discouraged. You stop uploading. If your subscribers start saying they don't like your colorism talking points, you run away. You delete the videos about colorism. If you see a content creator that's up and coming, that's 10 years younger than you, and more than 10 times smaller than your channel, then you get hella threatened, you delete your femininity content, and then you try to change your talking points to, more decentered versions of femininity, more decentered from men. So that's not only cowardly, but that makes sense as to why your business would be extremely unstable. Well, yeah, it's because your actual mindset and talking points are unstable, especially on a place like YouTube. In the YouTube commentary space, this is the one space where you want your talking points to be as stable as possible, is in the social commentary space. So a lot of these Black content creators, the reason they're changing their tune or, they're no longer talking about certain things is because the reason for them starting it either wasn't authentic or they have allowed other people to bully them out of their talking points. They got bullied off YouTube or they're intimidated by the up and coming content creators. They're threatened really by the exotical space. They're threatened by the fact that we've got a whole bunch of content creators over here now. So they're threatened by the smoke. They can't handle the smoke. That's basically what it is. They can't handle the smoke. They can't handle potentially having business competitors. This is why you also don't hear content creators like Chrissy calling out other Black women's online businesses by name and telling you guys, go subscribe to Barbie Life 2.0, go subscribe to, Cynthia G or the Mademoiselle or whoever. You don't hear them saying that. You don't hear a lot of Black women content creators saying other creators' names by name, telling their audiences to go subscribe, and you certainly don't hear them telling their audiences to go and purchase their competitors' Patreons and stuff like that. You don't hear them saying that. It's because they have a scarcity mindset. It's because they are mentally unstable. They're emotionally unstable. Their confidence is unstable. So that's why they're threatened by other Black women content creators. This is also why you see so many Black content creators that are really big, like Paris Milan or, women who have been on this platform way longer than me, Paris Milan, Chrissy, Lexis Exodus. These women have been on YouTube since I was probably, in college or something? Like I had been listening to these women having no idea that I would one day become the content creator that they are threatened by. That's incredible. But it also shows that their stability was based on the fact that they were the only one in their sector, or, they were kind of the only opinion in their sector. So a lot of women have unstable YouTube channels and online businesses, and they don't promote other women within their sector because they don't actually view other Black women as their allies. They're not actually pro-Black woman, they're pro-self. They're pro-self, or they're just pro-dark-skinned, or they're pro-dark-skinned unambiguous Black woman. Or they will get mad and rip other Black women apart. They tear other Black women down. You'll see more beef over there than you have in the exotical space. And even exoticals who are like beefing or whatever, usually it's somebody that was not a part of the exotical sector who just came into it. Maybe they were already a content creator. They came into it and started socializing with us. And then later on, they say that they're like not a part of it. You've never seen anybody to where they started their channel, they put the word exotical in their name from the very beginning, they collabed with all the other exoticals and then suddenly left. No, you've never seen that. Because a woman who actually has confidence and emotional stability and mental stability, she's not going to be threatened by another woman like growing in her YouTube channel or something, or starting a Patreon or starting a book. So even the entire culture that you see in like the exotical space, there's more of a culture of abundance over here. Like women in my Discord, I don't care if women go in my Discord if they wrote a book or something and then they promote it. I don't care if people go on my community page and they promote their channels. I don't get mad at that because I want them to actually succeed. I don't have this unstable ass mindset where it's like, oh my God, if she gains subscribers, then she could have more subscribers than me. Oh my God, she could have more money than me or something. So I'm threatened by that. No, only unstable women are going to have that roller coaster feeling So I also found it interesting that Chrissy talked about how she felt unstable as fuck in terms of her YouTube, her business. And it's interesting that somebody at 250,000 subscribers feels unstable. That's insane to me. So either you're incredibly bad with money, incredibly bad with time management, or incredibly bad with like business relationships or something. That's insane to me. Like, how is it that I could go full time as only 6,000 subscribers? You're at 250,000 and you're still saying you're unstable. How is it that I was stable at only 6,000 and you're unstable at 250,000? If that's not dysfunction, I don't know what is. So always listen to the women when they're talking. Listen to what they say. Listen to them because they actually expose themselves. And for the people who think that YouTube is like this big investment, you're going to lose all this money. No, it's not. That's why I encourage the Pretty Girl Club to start their own YouTube channels because it's absolutely free. Anybody can start a YouTube channel. It's free to create an account. It's free to upload a video. You can do it on your phone. You can do it with a free editing app. You can just record and just put one image on there. You don't even have to do all these fancy transitions or anything. So it's like, how is that hard? Like, how is that hella hard? Maybe you just don't have the gift for it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that that can't be a thing as well, but it's like, it's not as hard as what she's making it out to be. I think that that's a subconscious way of kind of discouraging her Black female audience from starting their own YouTube channels. Have you ever noticed that? None of the unambiguous Black empowerment content creators, none of them encourage their followers to start channels. They don't tell you, hey, start a channel just like mine and talk about Dusties or talk about Black men or talk about colorism. I don't care if you were to copy my shit. Just go ahead and start your channel so you can make money. I've never seen them do that. And I mean, now I think some of them have probably started to try to support others, kind of like this fake support, or, you know, maybe now they're trying to collaborate so they can prove to their audiences that they're more of a girl's girl. But they weren't doing that before the Exoticals came into play. I've also noticed that a lot of people in unambiguous spaces, they created their channels originally thinking that Exoticals would apologize for who we are. They thought we would apologize for our privilege, or they thought that we would kind of sacrifice ourselves and act as social martyrs so they can kind of attain their privilege. And that's really not how it works. Like in the case of Hollywood, if Amanda Steinberg were to not take any roles, another light-skinned woman would get that role. Or, you know what I mean? Like another mixed woman would be in her place. So I think that their original social climbing tactic of trying to get us to cancel our quote-unquote privileges, it didn't work. And so once they realized that we were not going to just live these leveled down lives out of solidarity with them, once they realized that, then they started viewing us as competition even more, or even resorting to backtracking and copying exotical talking points or using our phrases that we made up, such as privilege stacking. And also with the whole social climbing thing, the exotical space popularized that term. That used to be a really bad term. Being a social climber, that phrase was used as an insult before the exoticals came on here and broke it down psychologically and talked about how, no, that's actually a form of privilege stacking. And then I see Black women saying, oh, I go into these non-Black spaces, I get what I need, and I'm out. But then you get mad when mixed women leave the Black community. You get mad when light-skinned women get their pedestal and then leave. You get mad when we jump in and out of Blackness socially. But yet you're admitting that you do the same thing on your own live streams. So do you see how a lot of them shame us because they just feel like we're simply doing it better than them? I really do believe that's the case. I think that a lot of them think that we look better when it comes to beauty enhancements, weaves, wigs, contacts, blonde highlights, perms, relaxers, whatever it is they're trying to project onto you and say, oh, you're trying to be white. No, it sounds like a lot of them are really just mad because you actually look good and effortless with your blonde highlights, or you look good and effortless with your relaxer or with your contacts or whatever it is you've got going on. Because behind closed doors, when they think we're not looking, they're telling themselves, they're telling each other to do the same exact thing. And I also saw unambiguous Black women praising Candace Owens, who is, more of a conservative type of woman. So I find it interesting that they're praising Candace Owens, but they shamed Stacey Dash, who's a mixed woman, who was also kind of similar to Candace Owens, like going on Fox News and all that, kind of sharing her political beliefs, getting her bag. So it's wrong when a mixed race woman does it, but it's right when an unambiguous woman does the same thing. And I also saw Chrissy talking about this black TikToker, and she was like, oh, well, this woman is a failed swirler, and guess what? The black community doesn't like you either. Black men don't like you either. So that actually implies that a lot of women are getting with white men because black men don't like them, and that if they don't get with these non-black men, then they'll have no one. So first of all, it's male-centered, because she's implying that, like, you know, you're just going to be alone, like you're going to die alone. It has those types of undertones, very similar to red pill black men. You know how I said they're like a mirror of each other? So black women will tell mixed women, oh, shoulda chose better. Okay, that's a red pill talking point. And now you got YouTuber Chrissy giving this black TikToker the same talking point of you're going to basically die alone because, you know, it didn't work out with your white man. Well, it's definitely not going to work out with the black man either. So basically you have no choice but to go to non-black men. You have no choice but to try to get chosen by a non-black man if you can. And it's like, why is being single never an option? Like, why can't they just be alone? And I also saw people saying that this woman is a hotep. She's kind of overcompensating because she grew up in more of a white suburban community. And they're like, oh, well, there's nothing you're missing out on in the black community. And it's like, okay, first of all, you're admitting that you think there's nothing good about the black community. And secondly, you're kind of invalidating people's right to explore. She has the right to explore other cultures if she wants to. You know, just like how mixed women, we have the right to explore our blackness, our non-blackness. And so you can't shame a woman who actually is monoracially black who may want to stop dating white men. Maybe she does want a black guy now. I don't know. But even if she did want a man who's black, I mean, if that's what she wants, who cares? Like, if people want to date someone black, who cares? If they want to date someone white, who cares? You don't get to control and police what cultures other people get to engage in. So I've noticed this other mindset where a lot of black women, they act as the cultural police or the cultural gatekeepers of blackness. It's like, okay, only unambiguous black women get to decide who's light-skinned, who's dark-skinned, who experiences colorism, who doesn't, who has what hair texture, who gets to engage in blackness, who gets to date black men or not. Why do you guys care, even if this black woman on TikTok is switching over to black men now? Why would you guys care? Especially if you think those guys are dusty. And if you guys don't want those men anyway, why would you care if she dates someone who's black after this? So do you see this mindset of, oh, well, you know, I don't date black men, but I don't want others to date black men either? Isn't that the same narcissistic behavior that we see from black men? So do you see how they're really two sides of the same coin? Chrissy also admitted in a recent live stream at the 59-minute mark that multiculturalism is best. So she actually agreed with my talking point. And she's also agreeing, without realizing it, she's agreeing with my talking point that if you are multicultural or if you look multicultural, then you have an advantage. And by the way, when I use that phrase, looking multicultural, I'm talking about benefiting from an ism. Looking mixed is what I'm talking about. So there is a stereotype of what mixed looks like. And usually the stereotype is that a person who looks mixed benefits from at least one ism. We know that that's not actually true if you're actually mixed, but society as a whole doesn't really know that. So she's actually agreeing with our talking point that we have the advantage. So it makes sense as to why a lot of you guys see them copying you. Like in your real life, a lot of you see them copying your hair, your makeup, or trying to make themselves look more like you, trying to make themselves look more multicultural. You know, there'll be an unambiguous black woman with Brazilian hair on, so they look Afro-Brazilian. They're trying to look like they're more multicultural. They're trying to look like they come from a people group that has access to different ethnicities, different languages, you know, different cultural experiences. And it's their form of social climbing. So that's why a lot of them get mad and extremely jealous when they see us successfully social climbing. And also I found it interesting that about 10 minutes into her video, or like at the beginning of Chrissy's video, she says that she's ghetto. But then when she's over an hour in, she tries to essentially backtrack and say that, oh, actually, I went to white Christian private schools and I did ballet. And it's like, okay, so which one is it? Are you ghetto? Or were you in like kind of these all white spaces? Were those white people in the ballet class? Were they ghetto? Were the white people ghetto? Like, which one is it? Are you ghetto or are you suburban? Are you monocultural or multicultural? So she's constantly moving the goalpost within her own live stream, contradicting her own talking points as a way to make herself more of an authority amongst her black female audience. She's basically implying, hey, I'm not like you guys, my subscribers. I'm not like you guys. I know more about white culture than you guys probably know, unambiguous black women. So, I was in ballet and then I went to a private Christian school. And it's like, okay, so you're admitting that having cultural proximity to whiteness is kind of your standard. That's kind of your standard for multiculturalism. And then you have the audacity to get mad at exoticals for participating in that same multiculturalism. And I find it interesting that Chrissy tries to claim that she's multicultural. And it's like, okay, if you're actually multicultural, then why were all of your talking points about non-black people so inaccurate? Like, why would you say stuff like, oh, Indians are colorist? Why would you make an extremely generalized statement like that? Anybody who's actually been around the Indian community knows that every Indian person is not colorist. They don't say things like, oh, Hazel E is ugly because she has an Arab nose. That's an extremely closed-minded and also racist thing to say against people of Arab descent. So I have a hard time believing that Chrissy is multicultural just based on the extreme generalizations she has made about several non-black cultures, not to mention her former talking points on mixed race women or even light-skinned monoracial black women were not only ignorant, but also way off, to the point where I'm listening to the content like, wow, this woman is extremely monocultural. So it's like, which one is it? If you're so multicultural, you wouldn't have said all those extremely ignorant statements about people from other backgrounds. And then I also heard her say, like, around the 1 hour and 2 minute mark, she said, oh, if it weren't for my background, I wouldn't be able to social climb to where I'm at today. Okay, but where are you at today? Because you just said a few minutes before that your business is hella unstable. So it's like, okay, where are you leading all these unambiguous black women to? To having a lot of subscribers, but a lot of instability? And to being constantly frustrated and to feeling like, after 10 years of talking about colorism, that you feel like you're still at square one, you're still at step 1 or step 2, or being in relationships with high-functioning alcoholics for over 8 years. This is based on her own talking points. So it's like, okay, you're trying to pin yourself as this advice channel, like you're just so leveled up, but then when you actually talk, you're exposing the fact that you're unstable and that your life basically is sometimes, in some cases, maybe even worse than some of your own subscribers. And even if your life is great and it is leveled up, multiculturalism, aka the exotical culture, helped you get there. And then Chrissy, the content creator, threw shade at Halle Bailey, saying, oh, well, kind of like what happened to Halle Bailey, like that's what she gets. Basically, she was romanticizing hood culture because she's not from the hood, yet she got the same black man, the same treatment as the ghetto black girls. She thought it would be different for her. She thought that she would have a different experience. She thought it was fun. And it's like, you guys are acting like Halle Bailey has just gone off into oblivion. Halle Bailey is extremely successful. She's a millionaire. She just got cast in a new movie. She's got a lot of projects coming up. So her being this quote unquote baby mama, she's still living a better life than 90% of unambiguous baby mamas today. In fact, she's still doing better than a lot of Hollywood actresses who don't have kids. How many black actresses do you know of who would have loved to be a Disney princess, but they are not? So Halle Bailey, with her baby mama ass, still was able to achieve a level of success that a lot of other women will never have. So saying a talking point like, oh, well, that's essentially what she gets, or like, yeah, that's why she got with him, and, that's how she ended up a baby mama. Her being a mother to a child, that does not cancel out the fact that she's still leveled up, she's still successful. And I've noticed they love doing this talking point with exoticals who happen to be single mothers. They want you to feel like you having a child is some sort of handicap. Like, oh, you're just fucked now because, you have a baby. And it's like, no, she still has access to all these other privileges. So her having a baby, it's not like it just ruined her life. It might ruin the life of somebody who didn't have any privileges or didn't have anything to work with. But that's not the case for Halle Bailey. And another talking point I heard is like, oh, well, if other women of other groups are passive aggressive with you, then you just be passive aggressive toward them. So I see Chrissy telling unambiguous black women to be passive aggressive. And the example she used is that if a woman walks into an elevator and you're in the elevator and she does not speak to you, then, that's passive aggressive. So like you don't speak to her. And it's like, okay, not talking in elevators That's not passive aggressive. There's nothing aggressive if somebody happens to not say anything in the elevator. You're giving the whole you don't speak to nobody mindset. And yes, it's nice to talk to somebody in an elevator. That's more of a polite thing, like, but that's not a requirement. It's not like, oh my God, it's aggressive if they don't say hello in the elevator. So do you see how they take these micro experiences, these very small things, and then they say, oh, well, that's passive aggressive. So like, you don't speak to her and don't say goodbye, have a good day. Okay, clearly you care about being spoken to in an elevator by a white woman. So if you care that much, then just say hi to her. I mean, clearly you're the one who gets upset if you don't speak to people in elevators. So since you're so hung up on talking to people in elevators, then you be the one to say hi. If you want people to speak to you, then you have to speak to them. So the same mindset where it's like, oh, just mirror them. You know, they're aggressive towards you, you be aggressive towards them. The same thing works in the opposite direction as well. If you want people to be friendly towards you and speak to you in elevators, then you can make it a thing to speak to other people in elevators. Like, I've never even thought about how people interact with me in an elevator. I've never even thought about that because I don't pay that much attention to other people's like reaction to me. Like if somebody goes in an elevator, or I don't know, let's say I'm at the airport or something, or I'm riding an elevator in a hotel, I'm not over here getting mad or thinking in my head, oh, they're passive aggressive because they didn't say hi and bye to me before they got out of the elevator. Like, what the heck? That's actually insane to me. But okay. Another example she used was like, if you're in the grocery store aisle and you're looking at something, and let's say somebody walks in front of you and they don't say, excuse me, like when you're looking at the grocery items, then you go see where they are and walk in front of them. Like if you see them in the grocery store, go walk in front of them and like do the same thing. How insane do you have to be to where you're over here grocery shopping, living the soft life, and you get that mad because somebody happened to walk in front of the aisle for a second? Because I'm assuming the person is not just standing there. And if they are just standing there, then you say, excuse me. Like if somebody is legitimately blocking me, if I'm looking at something, I will say, oh, excuse me, I'm just going to get the trail mix right here or whatever. Like, but she didn't even say that. She didn't say somebody who is directly trying to block you like they're trying to block your view. She just said people who walk in front of you, people who walk past you when you're looking at the aisle. So now, not only am I getting mad because someone's walking past me. By the way, America's a melting pot, so I don't know if these people speak English. I don't know if they're in a rush. I don't know if they have a family emergency. You know, that's usually what I'm thinking. My first resort, if somebody were to walk in front of me or something, or maybe they're rushing, the first thing I think of is not racism. The first thing I might think of is, oh, they're just in a hurry or something. And I definitely wouldn't follow them and try to go walk back in front of them and like escalate it even further. Like, oh, let me see what aisle they're on. Okay, they're on aisle 5 looking at stuff. Okay, so let me go down aisle 5 and then try to walk in front of them when they're looking at the trail mix. Now, let me try to go and see where they're looking on the aisle. And then I'm going to purposely go and pretend like I'm buying something so I can like be in front of them and show them and prove a point that you don't walk in front of me. It's like, do you see how extremely passive aggressive that is? And that's actually... that's very creepy. Like nobody has ever been able to emotionally dysregulate me that much in a grocery store to the point where now I'm trying to, I'm taking more time out of my day so I can go block somebody else in the aisle because I'm mad because they blocked me for a second. You know, they blocked me a little bit, or they got in the way of my view when I was looking at the canned tuna. So, now I'm mad. Let me go and try to find them really quick and block their view. So I'm not going to check out. I'm not going to go do whatever I have to do for my day, for my schedule. So now I'm taking time out of my personal life. I'm making my errands last longer because I want to get revenge on this person that stood in front of me in the aisle. And it's like, okay, are you that bad at speaking up? Because if somebody truly is blocking you, you're telling me you wouldn't be like, oh, excuse me, I'm just trying to look at the cans really quick. Or, that's something I would say. I mean, honestly, that's never happened to me before, though. Nobody's ever like blocked me. And I don't know if that's what Chrissy meant when she was saying they get in front of you in the aisle. I mean, I've seen people walk in front of others. Like if the person is standing in the middle of the aisle and they're kind of looking at the canned foods and stuff, and maybe there's more room to walk past them in front of the aisle, I've seen people do that. But as far as directly blocking, yeah, I would just say something in a normal tone. I definitely wouldn't just stand there and wait and then try to see where else they go in the grocery store and then try to follow them so I can go do the same thing. What the heck? And this whole talking point of you're going to have to do the dance for the other communities you go into. Like, oh, you're going to have to do a dance in the non-black community. Okay, the white community, that's my community. The Hispanic community, that's my community. So now what? Like, when it comes to you dancing on behalf or dancing to be accepted by other communities, you're also dancing in front of us exoticals, and we know that. So put some respect on our name. Since you will be trying to partake in the communities that are a part of our background, or the communities that look like us, for the monoracial exoticals who happen to look like people of other backgrounds, just put some respect on our names then. If you want to be like us, just say it. If you want to look like us, just say it. If you like the communities that we come from and you think we're pretty, just say it. If you like our level up tactics and our social status, just say it. You don't have to lie to kick it. Just admit that the exoticals are the shit and be done. Just pay the exotical tax. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.